I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 23, Episode 6 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
My name is Gina, she, her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Stork. No, wait, that's not right.
No, you're not. You're not Stork.
No, I'm Jim. How's it going?
Yay!
Stork's MIA.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's missing again. We don't know.
Yeah.
He's probably asleep.
Actually, it's MIT.
It's lost.
Missing in Turkey.
That probably.
On Thanksgiving, that's appropriate.
Tryptophan.
Tryptophan coma.
Yeah.
Tryptophan poisoning.
Yep.
It's an actual thing.
It is.
It really is.
Oh, we got cons coming up in February.
Yep.
President's Day weekend.
Yep.
Strategicon.net for information about that. And also, let me just mention, thank you for those of you who donated to our Rainbow Railroad
Charity Marathon.
Yep.
We hit 6.
Yeah.
With 6,000.
$6,000 so far.
And that link will be open. Go to happyjacks.org/rainbow, and that link will be open until the end of the year.
And Gina, you told me that it cost $10,000 for them to save one person.
Approximately $10,000 to save one.
So we've saved 2/3 of a person.
Almost.
saved
Yeah.
6/10 of
So,
a
like,
person.
just because we hit our goal, like you said, you just kind of guesstimated.
Yes.
The link's still open, and just keep boosting the signal.
Yeah.
And
Push it.
yeah, because that's pretty awesome. They're actually doing a program, too, that's 60 lives in 60 days right now. So
really?
we could be one of those.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
That would be spectacular.
fantastic
Excellent.
to help somebody like that.
And don't forget, you can still win prizes. So we've got prizes if you... the top 4 donors for the whole fund. So whether you were watching during the marathon or not, whether you donated before, after the marathon, the top 4 get to play in an online game with Jason. So he'll be GMing that for the top 4 people.
Does he know he's running?
I think it's going to be like a conversation from the 4 people and figure out like what they'd like him to run.
Right.
So, and it'll be very fun. Cool. So you can still win that prize even if you weren't able to make it during our marathon.
Excellent. In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, we discuss Mapless versus mapped combat. Rands writes in about consequences, and Joshua in Edmonton writes in about sandboxes. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Now's a good time to send emails because our backlog of emails is getting thin. happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and MeWe. Come MeWe with me. At Happy Jack's RPG, all one word. All 3 of them. Boom. If you would like to watch the show live, you can watch the stream. Go to happyjacks.org/live. And that's on Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And that's that. First thing I wanted to talk about was mapped versus mapless combat. Because I don't think we've covered it like pros and cons thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard to come up with topics after 9 years
That aren't
that we haven't already done.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think we've done this. Although someone who's recently listened to the backlog may correct me on that.
I think we've talked
Don't
about
correct me.
maps before, but I don't know if we've talked about like the verses.
Right.
So
We've kind of talked about them in passing here and there.
Yeah. So maps versus mapless combat. Pros and cons, preferences.
I think it depends on the system, obviously.
Well,
But
let me just say, I ran GURPS for the first time in 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. And I used to always use maps. And we played with advanced combat rules when I was in college, which is if you have a move of 6, each facing change on a hex map is 1 point of move. And if you want to attack, you can take 1 step and attack, or turn 1 and attack, whatever. But we used to play that way all the time. Makes combat long.
yeah.
But this game, I just ran it. We didn't do it. I just did it sort of.
I think there are systems that, well, I guess I'll say two 2 points to me that are kind of drawbacks when I've played Mapless, because I have no problem playing Mapless, but where it can be frustrating is if you you think you understand what the scenario is and where the 5 mooks are and the one big bad and that sort of thing, and you specifically are going to hit something, but then somebody else thinks you hit somebody else or you're not close enough, and they, that whole thing where the theater of the mind kind of, I don't know, the theater of the mind kind of breaks down into tactical explaining of what, who, what, where, why, and how anyway.
Yeah.
So if it's going to bog down the game by me having to understand, where the guys are, how can I hit the most of them, then you start talking like that.
Like area effect spells and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I would want to position myself so that if I did chain lightning, I could get the most of them that I could get. Like, you end up starting to kind of not narrate and talk tactically anyway.
Right.
So versus maybe being able to actually see something and say, I move towards this chair, I'm going to move towards the chair and get behind it, but I'm going to cast chain lightning and hit these 2 guys and then get partial cover or something like that. And then there are times that when you're playing with someone, the GM maybe has a very specific idea of what's going on, so they're not as flexible about, oh yeah, sure, you can hit 3 guys. It's like, oh no, you weren't there, or that sort of thing.
Right.
So it can get a little...
Yeah, that to me is the biggest challenge with not using it. And I think I prefer to not use a map now. Mm-hmm. Part of that has to do with the fact that we're streaming. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And it's a big thing to put out a map, especially if people are going to be able to see it.
It's all like, yeah. You just don't like drawing in front of people.
Well, they get to see my lame drawings.
I know.
And I don't mind that as much.
I know. I'm just giving you shit.
But I think, it's suddenly a rigmarole. Because we usually, look at the table right now, and we're not even playing anything, and there's stuff all over. If I needed to use that map right now, it's like, okay, we got to clear everything away.
Yep.
And I can't get close to it. So some of it has to do with the fact that we stream now, but not entirely.
No, because when we did Dead Rain, it wasn't a huge deal. Like we narrowed it down. We learned a lot about streaming with a map from that campaign.
Right.
But I think that was the one campaign that really changed my mind on maps, because I think before that I was very maps are But that one specifically, when we were fighting those zombies, I liked having the idea, knowing hard, concrete where everything was, and being able to plan tactics. Because I play a lot of mapless games, PBTA most of the time, there's no map and things like that. Sometimes you draw it out so everyone kind of knows where things are, but I really like being able to look at that and being okay, planning. I think the obsessive compulsive power mad woman in me, the type A, loves really seeing where everything is and really having that concrete and being able to strategize.
Right.
Well, and it's not even so much, it might be an element of control, but I also think, Kimmy, you're better prepared to do what you want to do versus who am I next to? What happened? Where did it move? Am I this far? Am I within range? Without having to ask a ton of qualifying questions and then figure out that you can't really do the thing you wanted to do anyway because you don't have a general idea of what's going on the... I think Desert of Despair, we did the same thing. We would go mapped for a session and then we'd go mapless. Mm-hmm. And at least being able to kind of go back and forth, I thought was helpful. Yeah. Especially because when you're playing games like Pathfinder or D&D, even Savage Worlds, there are mechanical... Mm-hmm.
Oh, like the templates and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's flanking is a thing, or disengaging, or things like that. So it's kind of good to understand the scene.
Yeah, it's super important in Savage Worlds. I don't know. I liked in Dead Rain. You're right. We did flip back and forth, and I think that we found a good balance of it, because it was in small combats, we wouldn't worry too much about it. When there was that one scene in the house where we got attacked when we were sneaking around in that house. Mm-hmm. It's you don't need a map for a house. It's not that big anyway. You can describe it. But the airport battle, when you have this large space and you're trying to figure out exactly where the buildings and the old planes and stuff are, and where the zombies are, it's helpful. especially when you've got that long range where your character would have time to plan, like to see all that.
Right.
So, Chip, you've been very quiet.
Didn't want to interrupt. I think there are a couple of things that come into play. One is, I agree with you guys, it depends a lot on the system. It also depends on the nature of the game that you're trying to portray. If the combat you're trying to portray is a centerpiece to what's going on, then I'm more likely to want to have a map. If it's not central to the narrative of the story, then I'm more likely to want to not have it. The other thing is, if I'm running Theater of the Mind, my philosophy is err on the side of the players.
Yeah.
That means if Gina says, am I close enough to do this? Unless there's a significant narrative reason why she's not, like she told me previously she was going over there instead, then I'm going to say, yeah, you can do that. You can make that happen. If it's a question of, can I move as far as I need to do the thing? Do the thing.
Right.
You do the thing. Carry on. It's going to take something that's really just that the player has said something that precludes what they are saying now. Before I'm going to pause them and say, "Are we sure about that?" In terms of, does my spell hit all of these guys? What I have found useful for me, because I run Savage Worlds a fair bit, is I will take the number of people, of bad guys who are potentially affected, and I will roll an agility check for them. If they make it, if they fail, there's no way they're in the mix. If they make it, if they get a success but not a raise, then they're sort of in the mix. They'll take maybe half damage or something. And if they get a raise on that, then they manage to be outside of it.
Right.
Seems like a fair way for things to happen. And since at best most extras in Savage Worlds are going to have a D6 for whatever it is they're doing and no wild die, the odds of them getting out are not spectacular.
Right. Yeah, I in the last Bloodblade and Tusk game, was it the last one? Second one before last. When you guys were in the sort of underground water chamber things. Samantha's character jumped down in it right in the middle of them, and was it you or Bria? One of you cast an area of spell.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to draw it out, I just said, okay, well, she's kind of surrounded because she jumped right into the
that it was going to hit her too.
So it's like if you want to hit all of them, you're going to hit her as well. So and everyone was fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's logic.
But I think there is a level of tactics that I think Theater of the Mind combat is almost always going to miss because there's just a level of information that's not there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing because it makes combat longer.
I think it depends on the game.
It does. Well,
Right.
and I think too, I find I am more willing to take risks in Theater of the Mind games.
Right.
I try weird ass shit that I would never try, I think, with a map there, and I'm not sure the link between my risk taking and being able to see where the bad guys are and me being too tactically focused. I mean, maybe not too tactically focused, but being more tactically focused than I don't know if it may be the flavor of the games, because a lot of times it's masks or demigods or something, so it's I'm totally gonna turn into a rainbow and grab the back of this motorcycle and whatever craziness is happening, versus when it's in a combat, when it's on a map, I don't know, maybe it feels more dangerous, maybe it feels more real.
I think sometimes when the minis are on the table, when we have a map, I think there's a thought switch that goes on that switches from what do I want to do to what can I do,
or what should I do.
Fair.
What, rather than what's the most fun, what is the most effective? Maybe that's possible.
I mean,
you got a thought.
Oh no, I can wait.
I was just the tactical level of playing Theater of the Mind is basically just resource management and concentrating damage. That's your tactics if you're not using a map.
That's why I guess for me, part of it is if the system is crunchy and the system has bothered to come up with a rule set, and even more specifically, information that's on my character sheet, whether it's feats or moves or edges or whatever, that will have to do with movement and other sort of mechanically inclined strategies, strategic approaches to your character, I kind of would err on the side of wanting that grid more than not wanting it. Because there is something satisfying for me as a player, because I realize, I mean, we're not all the same and we all get different, you get juiced from doing different things. But let's use probably the most tactical RPG that we've all ever played, or at least that I have, which is 4E.
Right.
There is something pretty goddamn satisfying about being able to use what's in your toolkit and do something narratively that is super cool based on the mechanics of your character. It's really satisfying.
Yeah.
And there's a whole, not a class, but a category of character types, the controllers.
Yes. Which
would be very challenging to
Yeah.
run, and there's going to be a shit ton of guesswork if you don't have a map.
And even if somebody's yes-handing you, it's just less. There's just something less than about
because you didn't actually accomplish.
You didn't.
It's like I put myself in the exact.
You didn't checkmate. You
Right.
didn't go, oh yeah, I use entangle and I'm going to pull that guy right into the barbarian, and
Right.
You can still do that, but it's just you're going to have.
It doesn't have the impact.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So it kind of depends.
Thank you.
What happened to your
I know it was
sneezes?
really tiny, but it was.
I'm very good at hiding them now.
Yeah.
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gee, what happens, Sue? Why would I be afraid to sneeze?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here it comes. That wasn't me. It's probably fine. Jason in the chat room says, yeah, if I'm playing a monk in D&D, the biggest
Yeah.
benefit is my extra movement stuff.
Right.
So in that particular situation, sometimes if you're not using a map, you can get robbed of...
Yeah.
I mean, the DM to their best ability will try
Of
and make that
course.
fair, but actually counting the squares and getting those extra squares is a big deal.
Oh yeah, I remember Tappy played a warden
God. Yes.
in
Yeah.
4th edition, and his
Yeah.
warden he
Oh my
stacked
God.
up his feats,
Yeah.
and he could move 18 squares in a turn and still attack.
Off the fucking
Yeah,
board. That's crazy.
I played a skirmisher in a D&D 3.5 game years ago, and my whole thing was being able to roam through the combat, and I could move into groups of people, attack them, and move out because I didn't provoke attacks of opportunity when I left
Right.
a threatened square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ability to do that
And it,
really needed a map for
and
what we were doing.
what you'll find maybe more often than not is that other people will be able to do the same thing you can do just because there's hand waving going on.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a little bit and it's not that anybody's trying to, you built your
Deny
character
you.
around this.
Right.
Yeah. It's just that because we're doing theater of the mind, you don't want to be no, that guy's 5 feet further away from you,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so then things like that can happen. I've been in story games though before where you can tell the table gets to a point of frustration.
Yeah.
Where it's just can we please have a fucking piece of paper and make some X's on it?
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of confused about, and it's no one's fault, and it's just maybe there's enough going on with 5 people playing and an MC or a GM participating that there's just some confusion about what's going on in the
sure.
where you just need a piece of paper and put some X's on it, or something like that.
I mean, just look when people talk about when they read a novel and their favorite characters and they try to describe their characters.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have a slightly different description.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. It's like you're going to describe the combat scene and as best you can, but it's going to get interpreted differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the little thing with a piece of paper and put dots or
Yeah.
X's on it or whatever all the time.
That's actually really helpful, an in-between, sort of not using a map, but being able to illustrate. It's okay, you're in this pass, this narrow pass, and here's where these guys are, and here's where these guys up on the rocks are, and where are you guys?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you can kind of go from there.
From a GMing standpoint, one downside to using maps is you've gone through all of this effort, and because I like to draw them.
Right.
Because you're an artist.
Well, okay.
He is.
But then to draw a map, and then the characters all turn left before they ever got there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
like,
happened to me, too.
We're the worst.
No, it's not
Are
the worst. It's just, the story went a different way.
Yeah.
And it's a little... I have I have battle mats, but then having to stop everything and go,
Yeah.
Oh
okay,
my God, yeah.
is because now we've just interrupted the flow of the game.
Right.
Right.
And it's a lot more satisfying to be able to go, okay, cool, there you go.
Yeah.
There's what's in front of you. On the other hand, something that came up, I was not involved in the game. I heard the story, so yeah. But there's a game going on, and there was players were doing their thing, and the GM turns around, picks up a map, and sets it on the table. And one of the players go, "Oh, well, now shit's getting real."
Yeah.
Right.
As a GM, I'm just going, and it wasn't before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. I see where this is. Nice.
All right. First email.
Cool.
One of you ladies.
I was going to read it,
Oh.
but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's your show.
You can blow the whistle on the
It's
train.
your
Go ahead.
show. It's
Go
your
ahead.
show.
You don't control.
No, you should read
you
it.
don't
'cause
control
it's
the throttle, but you can
good
blow the
day.
whistle.
It's your show. You do you.
All right. No, it's too long. I don't want to read it. No. G'day, you jolly jackaroos and jillaroos.
Chillaroos.
I've been listening to your show since the beginning, and I'm a huge fan of the show, but I feel compelled to write for the first time following the release of ShadowCon 12.
All right.
I listened to it a few days ago and have been stewing on this. I take exception to that. And get it? 'Cause
Yes. You're
and the
so
fact
it's
and the
funny.
fact and the fact that my opinion hasn't softened in that time is a pretty good indication
Yeah.
of the strength of my feelings on the topic.
Absolutely.
What a bunch of whiny bitches! The end of the episode pretty much sums up my frustration with players and organized play RPGs in particular. Actions should have consequences. The players led a rebellion against a lawful ruler of the land, broke the laws of the land, murder hoboed their way through the episode with a few quote-unquote diplomatic interludes where they stubbornly refused to give any ground.
Okay.
And the guy that flat out refused to hand over his weapons to the guard especially stands out in my mind. The players kill / maim the guards, kill everyone important to the Baroness, even leaving aside any misunderstood implications for her lands, and then whinge and whine when she won't cooperate with them. Full respect to the GM for not rolling over and capitulating to the players. For me, RPGs are about actions and consequences. You make your bed, you lie in it, or work out a way to get out of the pit again. What you don't do is complain to the GM about how they have shut down the story because the players' actions have resulted in a diplomatic impasse. As a player, I find consequences compelling and engaging, but it really sounded like the players in this episode just expected a quote-unquote win condition to be handed to them because, quote, our way is the only way, end quote. The reward for playing the game is playing the game regardless of the outcome, not winning, quote unquote. Is this a case of PCs railroading the GM? Quote, let us win the way we want to or else. And then he put a little emoji with the circle that like shocked. The shocked emoji,
Yes.
I guess. Or the shocked emoji.
I think so.
Check your PC entitlement, please. Particularly the dude that was on verge of throwing a tantrum that he didn't get his way. GMs set the scene and react to the PC's actions. It is not incumbent on the GM to dig the PCs out of a narrative hole that they have dug for themselves. It is for the PCs to come up with a solution to move the story forward, or accept the story branch has come to an end and start another. I've recently stepped away from running Pathfinder Society games for this reason. Okay. The players have become so used to having scenario rewards handed to them with little or no threat of permanent consequences, i.e. death or attribute damage, that they are genuinely offended when something bad happens. What do you mean I only get 1 instead of 2 prestige points for this scenario? I take 8 points of strength damage? Well, that's my game finished. I don't think that's the sentence he intended to write when he started it.
Maybe they say that. Who knows?
Maybe. Well, that's my game finished.
Well, that's my game finished.
There you go.
That's the.
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be.
I think it's like, how dare you give me strength damage? Yeah.
For this reason, I'm hoping to start a Blades in the Dark mini campaign in the near future, where there is an explicit expectation that bad things will happen. Play 10 candles. And action actions have consequences, whether good or bad. I'm hoping the players I GM for will approach the new system with a fresh perspective, but I was generally shocked at the reactions of the Happy Jacks players, given their experience with the hobby. Look forward to many more episodes and APs to come, and apologies for any offense I may have caused to the players. All the best. Rands. P.S. Good luck if you're trying to read this in an Australian accent. No, Australians don't like my Australian accent. I was born in Liverpool. He was born in Liverpool. Lived with a bunch of Irish people, for a long time, and have lived in Oz for the last 18 years. My accent is mongrel, to say the least.
Mine is too.
Yeah.
D-smile.
Yeah. Yeah, well, lucky for Rands that there's 2 people from that game sitting here.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I haven't watched or listened to it yet, so I'm interested. So it was a Blades in the Dark game?
No, it was a Warhammer game.
Warhammer, okay.
Oh, that's the little mini campaign.
Got it, okay.
It's the mini campaign.
Okay.
We're actually doing Blades in the Dark next.
Oh, got it, okay.
But
you mentioned running that, so I didn't know if that was like a comparison. Okay.
No, he's absolutely right. Like, there are consequences in this game, and the GM we have is the GM I play with that is the most your actions have consequences. So we are all used to that at Colin's table. We actually had a debrief and then a debrief off camera after the debrief because that game got funky for, I think, just different reasons for people. And what it kind of came down to, and then are a couple different things. Our die rolls were atrocious. Yeah. They were horrible. So it wasn't that the GM, and I don't think we felt like we were getting dice. We were getting dice blocked. We weren't getting story blocked.
Right.
But after a while, when you're just like you're doing what you want to try to do, whether it's in your character's mucho skill set or just average or whatever, and just like fail. So I think there was a little bit of that where it's like we did try different things. We tried diplomatically, but the reactions to our failures were like making it harder and harder and harder to like do what we thought we needed to do.
Right. Very quickly,
please.
What is the dice mechanic in
percentiles?
Oh, see, fuck percentile dice. I hate fucking percentiles.
Well, and this
it's almost as bad as it is. It's as bad as a D20.
This is and this is Warhammer, and so I'm going to say another thing is a disconnect that I as a player have with Warhammer because I'm newer to Warhammer, so I get it.
Warhammer Fantasy.
This is Warhammer Fantasy, and it's the 4th edition. So the mechanics are not a problem. The mechanics are, but I do have questions about the mechanics, and we debrief about that also because the books just came out, and we started playing it when the PDFs were just available. So Warhammer is a dark world,
yes.
and it is very, very possible that your character gets burned at the stake for being a heretic and slaughtered or whatever.
That may be coming our way.
Yeah. No, it may be because what we ended up doing after failure to like have a conversation with this guy, it was a Baron, and we're trying to have a conversation with him, and he wasn't having any of it, and then he was acting very weird, and I, as a character, made a judgment call that he was chaos affected.
Okay.
And so I reacted and continued my story with my character like he was chaos affected. He might not have been. He might have just been an eccentric, rich baron. So absolutely, there was slaughter. We killed a bunch of guards. One of the players had guards leading them into the building on the promise that they were going to be okay, but they weren't with me and someone else. So then when they said we had to disarm, I was like, no, we are not disarming. And so then they tried to physically disarm us. So it was like, and he's absolutely right. I think we were all sort of in awe of like what had transpired because we weren't trying to like be well. And here's my best example, and this was something Colin and I talked about after. I did like massively make one of my diplomacy rolls, but I didn't get the response to that. And that's kind of when, because another character then did something else. But I'm like, if you make a roll and then you succeed at the roll, then the action should happen, the consequence of that, making that roll. So what happened is
otherwise it was kind of, dice,
right. So there was kind of this house of cards that got built. And when we finally had a success, it didn't have any ramifications because another character did something. And then it all fell like apart.
And it canceled out that the whole thing that you had been building up to.
Yeah, so I rolled for nothing.
Right.
I think, though, I'm not, like, being an outsider, not knowing exactly what's happening, just kind of hearing the description, like, I think that's valid, though, and I could be wrong, not knowing the specific situation, but if one player's building up to something and another player's doing something else, I think that's okay.
Contrary in some way.
As much as I've been there, and that sucks to be the player, like, having another player character do an action that negates it, I think is legitimate.
Right. And I see that point.
It is, but what's the point of, turn order, then, though?
So they went out of order.
Well, no, because you can't, how do you react to something someone else is doing when it's technically turn order that person's turn?
Right, so it was like in combat turn order?
Well, it's kind of like,
Okay.
Gina did her thing, made her roll, okay? And then before the result to that, the NPC involved sees another player character and acts on that instead of... Okay, I can see
absolutely.
You know, it's just a disconnect. It's just an unfortunate disconnect. To talk to a couple of other things that he talks to about in here. One, my character was absolutely convinced that this Baron was insane.
Yeah,
and he was threatening his own people.
Yeah,
with death.
Isn't that pretty normal for Warhammer?
On a grand scale.
It's required.
Yeah.
probably.
But the position that my character then took was, well, we have to get this guy out of power.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do what we have to do to do that.
Right.
I'd rather talk about it. But on the other hand, my character's a cavalryman. He's not real inclined to be talky.
Warhammer's not a very talky set.
No, and not when in character, like, you tried, and it's like...
It is the murder hobo setting,
we went through this, and when it came down, it's like, we have the total upper hand in the tactical situation.
Right.
And then the guards are saying, oh, you have to disarm. I'm like, no.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't.
No, but
we're winning.
Yeah.
You can disarm, and we'll go talk.
Yeah. I was going to say, but I think where the listener and the writer is not wrong is that it probably ended up sounding, depending on your point of view, like we were, because then when you finally get to the end run and we get into the room with the Baron that I had shot with a crossbow then, when he said I could talk to him, and then he reneged and tried to capture my peep. So I shot him with a crossbow, so he dies the second we go in the room, and his mother won't talk to us, in part because we're failing rolls. So it's like, that's the way the randomizer was saying the story needed to go.
Yeah, and to be fair, emotions were high. Yeah. I will grant that emotions were high. And there was a point where I raised my voice because I made a statement, and the GM and I disconnected about where that went.
Right.
And I would not have gone to the extent that he went to with it, and I was like, no.
Yeah. I think it's good to have these these things, though.
Yes.
Because, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that I think kind of makes us different than a lot of people who put our games out there, is like, we are really just friends who are really just hanging out.
Yep.
And there are going to be awkward moments. There's going to be wrong calls by people. So there's going to be like those heated emotions. And I think putting it out there, like, this is what happens in real people's games, and this is what happens in our games because we're real fucking people.
Yeah, we just turn the cameras on. We don't edit or anything.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. Because I think people are sometimes surprised when they listen to APs or watch something.
Yeah.
And there are those moments there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it's not scripted and it's not.
We're not performing from a script.
We're not, as much as I'd love to be, we're not improv, specialists or, hopefully we get better and better. But it was from that point of view, and we had a long conversation about it in Slack. We had a long conversation afterwards because I think there were multiple things at play that just kind of funked with everybody emotionally.
So you guys had a debrief on stream.
We had a debrief on stream and then more off stream, because I think it was when we were debriefing on stream, it was still a little
raw.
I don't understand
still
what
a little
just
bit raw
happened.
in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. These things happen.
Yeah.
And we're playing this game again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're picking up from pretty much right that moment, I think.
Yeah.
And I will speak for my character and say, I have every expectation of Imperial authorities coming down and going, no.
Well, see, that's...
And as a player, I'm fine with that.
Right. Yes.
We made choices.
Yes.
On the other hand, I can also make the argument we just conquered this barony.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
If we can then turn around the problems in this barony and make things cool and make this barony profitable.
Yeah,
it's possible.
That's a long-term goal for my character, by the way,
Yeah.
too. So it's like...
Conquering.
Yeah, well, I want to gain a peerage, and that's one way in that world of gaining a peerage.
Absolutely,
not
murder people.
That.
Now, is the Warhammer Fantasy? Is it the same emperor?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but he's not dead yet because he dies in 30,000.
Yeah.
So this is like he's like 50 or
He's not dead, Stu. He's not dead.
Yeah.
He's not dead yet.
Because he gets killed.
Doesn't he? Isn't he? He's like everlasting, like life, though, right?
Well, no, he's undead. He's sort of.
That's what I'm saying.
He's like super psionic.
He's not dead.
And they have to like slaughter 1,000 psionic people
heresy
every day.
Yeah.
To keep him alive, and he's the good guy in the setting.
Yes. What I found really interesting is that have you ever sat at a table with your friends and played a game and had one of those sessions where you literally at the end of the game, I think if you would have asked every person at that table, it's like, I don't know what the fuck we do next.
Yeah.
Where within, 72, 48 hours of talking about because some of it was mechanics that I was like, I think mechanically there were some choices we made to tweak the system that were fucking with my character. Mm-hmm. So we talked about that a little. We talked about some other things. We talked about the not feeling... it probably sounds like you feel entitled, but that honestly, it wasn't that we expected that we should have been given stuff on it. It was a conflux of other stuff. Well, but I'm super excited to play this game.
Yeah,
because we did paint ourselves into a motherfucking covered with blood red corner.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I'm all for consequences. I think consequences are great. I will say this though, and I'm not saying Colin did this. I'm just saying consequences don't always have to immediately go to 11.
Although, part of that also depends on the world you're playing, and Warhammer is very much an 11 world. So,
and sometimes that's going to happen because if you put yourself on the other side of the screen, and Colin doesn't use the screen, but when people are failing to do what they're trying to do, the situation is escalating behind. Or if you're playing PBTA and the MC has fronts, you might not see that right away, but shit is going to happen, and it might be super fucking ugly. People might even end up dead in a PBTA game, which doesn't happen all the time, because there are going to be consequences for those actions, for sure. I think one of the things, though, that we talked about after, and this probably might have been on camera, but when you do get excited in your role play, there are things that you can do, though, that we've talked about where you can tell people how they feel, but don't tell them what they do. So as a reaction, and I think that was the only time that it was like, I didn't do that, where it was in reaction to something you were successfully able to do, and I think but...
The Baroness was trying to leave the room, and I said, no, I'm blocking the door. And the next thing the GM said was, well, when you knock her down to the ground, I went, I didn't do that. I'm blocking the door.
We had already fucked up enough. But I'm super excited to play it.
I am very excited to play it.
Is a good...
Baroness and I are likely to have a very unfortunate conversation.
Well, she'll probably get a super awesome suite of rooms in somewhere where she can't leave, and because
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, there are two people that we really need to deal with directly.
Yeah.
The Baroness is one, and then the remaining sergeant of the guard is the other one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it to him simply. It's like, how loyal are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing is, too, I think one of the cool things about ShadowCon is that you guys play these little-known, not little-known, but lesser played games.
Right. Yeah.
And that does, put you guys in situations often where, Warhammer is a very set universe.
Yep.
And sometimes when you're playing these short campaigns in a very set universe, there's going to be, not mistakes, but, there's going to be things that like the GM, because they know the system so well, would be like, oh, that's not a good decision. But you don't know that as a player necessarily, because I mean, we've done that in L5R when we first started playing L5R. Oh my God, we made so many. So I look back and I'm just like,
the beta test or the first one?
Well, the first one, like, because the beta test still is the same kind of universe, at least. So even though the dice and stuff are different, but that I like listen back sometimes to that first campaign. I'm like, I can't believe I said that to that person. Oh my God, what was I thinking? Like, you just learn the world. Yeah, absolutely. And Atomic Samurai Cyborg in the chat room says the 40K Emperor and the Fantasy Emperor are not the same. So
there you go.
Correcting
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, so
good to know.
Thank you.
Good to know.
But that's what having adult conversations too does for you, I think. And we talk about that a lot, where it was just like, it was kind of raw because we were all like, what the hell just happened? Player expectations and character expectations, and just kind of everybody being confused, but kind of talking through it. It's like, and thinking we were at a place where we literally, like, none of us, we were like, what can we do? And now I'm totally ready for that. Yeah. And I'm ready for whatever.
Well, and you guys were great. You guys took the time to have the conversation after the game. You stepped back. You had later conversations when tempers and like emotions had gone down, which is so important to like not just think you fixed it in the moment, because people tend to be like, it's fine, and it's not fine. Yeah. And then you guys have taken time, and then now you're ready to come back to it, and everybody's ready to come back to it fresh. And friends again.
Yeah.
And excited about it.
Yeah. So that was an awesome letter. Because, I mean, I think it's not a bad call. That was a good call and a good letter. Because I do think it could have come across like that. I don't think we were trying to do that, but for us to be like, what the hell is going on, would have absolutely read that way to somebody. Yeah,
well, and in the moment, it can be that way. And it is that way in real games.
Life is messy.
Real messy, especially when you're playing with emotions and dice.
Yep. The randomizer. That said, no, you will not do that. No, you will not do that.
Fuck percentile dice.
Well, and the thing...
All dice. All dice.
If I can spend 5 seconds talking about the mechanical implication of something we house ruled, is that this 4th edition is pretty frickin' sweet. And I like it a lot, and I've only played 1st edition. Colin has played. He's our expert, and so is Morgan, who plays. But there are supposed to be 40 more trait points or 20 more trait points that we would have been able to spend, which actually, you know, if you're working on a percentile, 5 is huge.
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm rolling to try to get a 38 versus a 43, or I'm trying to get a 53 versus a 48, it makes a difference. So to make it grittier, there are 2 things we house ruled that our characters are more in keeping with like the Warhammer universe, versus 4th edition, they're a little more
oomphy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Which is not bad, but I was like, oh, those points, that's where they would
be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice to have those points.
Yeah. But it's okay too, because actions should have consequences. Otherwise, it's not fun to play, to be honest.
Word.
Cool.
Sandbox games.
Thank you, Rans.
Yeah. And thank you for being brave enough to like call us and stuff, because that's cool.
No, I like that too, which we're going to see in other letters maybe.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't done the homework, so I don't know.
Yeah, this is the angry email episode.
Nice. All right. You guys weren't kidding.
It from the
Don't worry,
intro.
I'm the target of the next one.
Oh, good. Okay, can I read it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. All right.
I don't care.
Dictator Stu and his yes men, people, and the occasional disaster.
Or dissenter.
Holy shit,
Was there a
Stu.
big crash out
There
there?
was. Your dogs are fighting or something.
No, but I did hear like a thunk. I didn't think it was a car thing, but...
No, it was Baloo hitting the wall.
Okay.
Okay.
Holy shit, Stu. You really don't like when people disagree with you, do you? Well, I'm about to, and as much as I hate to say it, Stork said something extremely relevant, and I'm 100% agreeing with him.
See, first time in 9 years, and he misses it. He's not here.
I can't
What
read
universe
this
is
email.
this guy living in?
Yeah.
I just want to know.
The one where Stork is right.
I'm rage quitting this email already. I'm sorry.
I know.
Somebody else. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I love you, Stork. Even though you didn't show up tonight and I don't know where you are. Having a GM game changes the nature. Oh, having a GM game changes the nature of the game. As soon as the GM makes some sort of input into the game, it is no longer a sandbox. And by the way, Minecraft can be fun, sure, but most of the time, it's boring as fuck. It is fun to build your own shit, sure, but it's also nice to have a world interact with your shit, too. By your definition of sandbox, you are pointless. There should be no GM because the players have to think of everything. Example. Stu's idea. Players, we want to walk into town and head to the blacksmith to get our gear repaired.
Stu, the blacksmith is in the middle of making some ornamental work for a local trader, and he said he will get your stuff to you later in the day.
Player. Hang on, Stu. This is my world, and you are controlling it. I thought I was in control. I want him to drop everything and repair my shit now, and give me a discount because I am pretty. I'm glad I picked that voice for the player.
I know, right?
Stu, well, shit. I did say that everything comes from you guys, so sure, go ahead. God forbid I block your sandbox and interfere with your, quote, fun.
Everyone else who understands how games are played. Players.
I love the fact that I don't know anything about role-playing games.
No, you don't
That's
know anything
awesome.
about role-playing games. And players. We walk into town and head to the blacksmith to get our gear repaired. GM.
The blacksmith is in the middle of making some ornamental armor for a local trader. He said he will get your stuff later in the day.
Player. I'm in a bit of a rush, and so I'm going to rush to get moving to the next town, and I see my family, so I offer him substantial bonus to get it done more quickly.
GM. The blacksmith looks grateful for the offer, but says that the trader has been waiting for his work for a while now, and he really wants it today. If you can go talk to the guy and offer him some money or service, he might be willing to wait and not raise a stink if his work is delayed again.
The block adds a little extra work to work with, and doesn't significantly change anything. Just add some fun. I apologize for the derogatory remarks in my letter.
No,
You're not sorry.
No, because you typed it and sent it.
Because there's editing.
When you type things in capital letters repeatedly, it's not, oops, sorry I said fuck 8 times. But you can be somewhat offensive when you get on your soapbox, and it chaps me a little bit.
Chaps or
Yeah.
chaps?
This is chaps.
Chaps
Maybe
me.
his ass
It
is
chaps
chaps.
me.
Yeah.
It
Chap
means
your ass.
Chaps your ass. It means he's getting
It's
annoyed.
sore. He needs ointment.
Chafes.
Like
Chapped lips. I don't know.
butt chapstick or something?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
It's called utter butter. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I love your show, and I love your host and guests, even though Stork gets under my skin fairly often, though he does offer a lot. Joshua in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Canadian.
Canada. You just added an I.
Yeah, no, it's Canada. P.S. Consume your alcohol and be merry about it. P.P.S.
I'm out.
I know a lot is going to be lost in translation as misunderstandings will be had on both sides, but such is the nature of written communication.
What?
Without discussion, I am sure we will piss each other off for weeks whenever this comes up. I look forward to it. Actually, your letter was more coherent than most
Yeah.
English letters we get from
Yes.
native English
He was not drunk when he wrote the letter.
No.
He was, however, drunk when he listened to this episode.
Yes.
I am not a yes man. Because I'm not a man.
Well, no, he put persons in parentheses. I appreciated that.
People.
Yes, people.
Yeah.
People,
People.
yes.
Yes, peeps.
I'm an occasional dissenter.
First off, you kicked the shit out of that straw man.
Oh, no.
That straw man is bleeding on the ground.
He's been preparing for this. Be ready.
No, he did. It kicked the shit out of it.
Yeah. I hope your chaps are ready.
First off, I never said the GM doesn't do anything. I said the GM, I believe what I said specifically is that in a sandbox game, story hooks should come from the players rather than the GM. That does not mean the GM doesn't do anything. That just means that the story hooks are player generated rather than GM generated. And I believe I said in that episode, if not in the first one, because we've been talking about this for a fucking month, the GM's role in a quote-unquote sandbox game, if the term was used correctly, would be almost totally reactive. But that is not... You can't make any decisions. You can't decide anything. You can't control the NPCs or the weather or anything else. I never said any of that, ever. I've never said any of that in my life.
Yeah.
That's what the GM does, is control NPCs and the rest of the world that the players don't. It's his job.
Otherwise, you're not really playing a game.
no.
You're just telling a story.
Right, yes. In his understanding of what I said, there is no need for a GM. He's absolutely right. Play Fiasco.
Yeah.
But that's not what I said.
If one were to theorize a purely sandbox scenario, I have postulated in the past that it's impossible. It is
possibly, yeah.
It's
possibly impossible.
It is true that I have said that. Am I right? Maybe not. We'll find. Maybe we'll find out one day. I don't know. But the thing about a sandboxy game is liken it to a kid's sandbox. Kid's sandbox doesn't just sit there and have nothing in it.
That's not the common definition of sandbox. We'll get to that in a second.
It has toys in it.
Right.
Okay. The GM is responsible for the toys.
Mm-hmm.
And as the GM, I will put toys in the sandbox. Now, whether you as players pick those toys up and play with them, that's not my problem.
Right.
Now, the toy might continue doing something even if you don't pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. The point is, the salient point, in my opinion here, is that in a sandboxy game, I'm not telling you what toys to pick up. I'm not telling you that if you don't pick up specifically the toy I want you to play with, that the game doesn't work or doesn't go on. That's the practical definition of a sandbox game. Is here's a bunch of stuff. Do what you want.
Right.
I'm going to give you some things that might be interesting to you. Might try to interest you in some stuff. But what you do, it's up to you. And what you do, the choice you make matters.
Well, isn't that every game? Or shouldn't it be?
Should be.
So that's not really the definition of a sandbox. Unless every game is unless the definition of a sandbox is every game that isn't railroady. Which is kind of what the actual definition that most people use is.
I also think that
which is horribly unhelpful.
I also think there's a quality statement that gets applied here.
What is it then?
And that people said, well, my game is sandboxy, and that's by definition supposed to make it a good game.
A better game.
No, it's not.
And that's not necessarily true.
Can you just say you're a good GM and that you don't railroad the players? Isn't that basically saying the same thing?
Well, no. For me, when I say a sandbox game, and I think of it literally like Jib was describing, a sandbox. Like, I have planned the things in this world here. You can do whatever you want in it.
Right.
So in other words, like for me, it's I've planned this. You can do them in any order you want. So for me, I can't tell if I'm playing a sandboxy game as a player, because to me, it's about how you design it as a GM. It's like if you're playing a video game. Like there are video games where you have to go through a certain storyline. You kind of can tell. But like if you're playing a Skyrim, or right now I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's a sandbox because I can go any direction I want until I hit those edges. Eventually I do fucking hit the edges, and they don't even disguise them as fucking mountains. Come on, guys. I'm sorry, I'm upset about that.
That's fine.
But so for me, it's more of a design standpoint rather than how the players work through the story, because you definitely have storylines and things.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
In a video game that is not a sandbox, were that translated into a tabletop RPG, would it be considered railroady?
It would be very direct, and
well, we don't use the term direct in RPGs. We use the term railroad.
Well,
when you only have to go in one, we can only go in one direction, or you make no progress unless you follow certain.
So we're talking
things.
like Super Mario Brothers, where it's literally like 2D, and you can go that way or this way until you hit the wall.
No, like a computer generated, a computer RPG.
I know. I'm just kidding.
If it was not built as a sandbox, and it were a tabletop RPG, would it be considered railroady?
No, because I guess it depends, because in those games, like, you can still be like, oh, I'm on the storyline. Oh, no, I don't feel like that. I'm going to go shoot stuff over here and not participate in the story.
Let me give you one example, because I play almost no computer games at all.
I know.
I played that one Star Wars one where you're starting out on a ship and it's blowing up and you have to get off the ship.
No, I don't think I played that one.
It's old. It's probably 10 or 12 years old. I can't remember the name of it.
That's helpful.
But anyway, you have to get off the ship, and you have to do specific things in order to get off the ship.
Right.
If you don't do those things,
you die.
No, you just don't progress. The ship never actually blows up. Because I couldn't figure out how to get off. I couldn't figure out how to get off the ship, and I spent I don't know, an hour on this ship with probably 12 rooms.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old I don't know if it was 2. I'm not sure. Anyway, if you don't get off that ship through the exit that you have to use, you cannot progress to the rest of the game.
That's a railroad.
That's a railroad, right?
How
is it not a railroad?
I think it's a railroad.
If I did that in an RPG, in a tabletop game, and said, you have to go talk to this guy, get this thing, and go over there, and nothing else you do has consequences in the world.
No, that's not... Well, in that specific instance, but most RPGs, like, there are things you can do... Like,
that's why I picked that one.
Right. If there's literally nothing else you can do, then yes, that's railroady.
Right.
But you can have a less sandboxy game speaking specifically about video games, where you can go and you can just not progress that main storyline.
Right.
And you can go swimming or whatever you want to do.
I think if there's a main storyline, it's not a sandbox.
Really?
I think
I would agree
to
with
me,
that.
A sandbox is I launched Google and I got 18 stories on the page.
Oh, I don't run sandbox games then.
No, I think
here's
you
the
run
thing.
super, super, super light. Like there's not rails. There's a story, and that people can do what they want. To me, if it's a sandbox, but this is to Stu's point.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the definition for sandbox?
Right.
But to me, it's you pick up a newspaper and you look at the front page. This is what's going on in your world. You don't have to do a goddamn thing.
See, to me, that's an improv game.
I'm not sure that these definitions actually have any meaning.
No, but they're fun.
No,
that's
I know.
the problem. That's the problem. That's
Yeah.
why. That's why how this whole conversation started. Is I'm like, what people are using sandbox to mean very different things, and what most of them are using it to mean is I run games that don't suck.
Right.
Is the common definition.
I think you're right about that.
See, I've never when I've used it, and when other people have said it, I guess I've interpreted it as my meaning of I've designed it, and people can do this in any order.
Well, see, I assumed sandbox for tabletop RPGs came from the concept of a sandbox, which is not the case.
Which is what you were saying.
It was a borrowed term from computer games. The computer game industry used the term sandbox, and it was adopted to RPGs. So it's not a direct...
Right, but that's what I learned it from, is from video games.
Right, but it's... Right. But that... How a sandbox is defined for the computer game industry should be how every tabletop RPG is run ever.
Right.
The players can do what they want with their characters.
Yeah.
They don't have to go to specific places. So it's every game that doesn't suck. That's what a definition of a sandbox means.
People use... I think that the tone in which people use it or context frequently is it's a bona fide. It's I run
sandboxy games, so therefore I run good games.
Yeah, so I totally get what you're saying.
Exactly.
And I think that's a misnomer. I mean,
it's a wholly unuseful term. The way it's being used.
Right, but that's not what the email's about.
No, it isn't. No.
It totally is.
I
would I would like to point out too, you can have good games that aren't sandbox games.
Absolutely.
I would say convention games, they can't, by time limit, by constraint, they can be a little bit sandboxy, but for the most part, I mean, most con games that I've run anyway, and most of our one-shots for One Shot Saturday and some of the ShadowCon games, there's a storyline, and you can change it, and you can adapt it as the players go.
I disagree. I think I disagree.
Oh, okay.
I think I disagree.
All right, well, let's save this for another topic then.
No, I can do it. I can do it quick.
No, I don't want to do it quick, but I think I want to get back to this guy's email, because I think this is a really shitty example of this, by the way. Because why, as a player... I don't want to spend time doing side quests to get the blacksmith to make my stuff faster. That's really boring.
I think he's using this as a convenient example.
It is a convenient example
of what he's talking about. But let me ask a question. Okay. Do you feel like, because you play in the game, do you feel like Gainax is a sandboxy game?
No. But not in a bad way. That doesn't mean I don't love it.
No, that's just what their definition is. Sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But there's very specific, the bad guys are doing very specific things. And when we do stuff, I feel like there's by definition, like, I think that's important because it's not, I mean...
Would it alter your feelings on the subject to know that I have 3 pages of notes that I wrote before the game started that I've never used?
No, because
and the game is something entirely different from what it was when I conceived it.
Which is why I think you can't call something a sandboxy game unless you are looking at it from a planning standpoint. Like when I can't tell as a player, I shouldn't be able to tell if it's a sandboxy game or not. Like
I agree with that. I think
sandbox is a term for because this is how I learned it. It's a term for designing video games. How you design a video game,
right? Where the characters can do whatever they want.
Yeah, where you can follow that main storyline. Sometimes it's really obvious you're off the main storyline. But
there's a main storyline.
Yeah, there is a main storyline, but you can say, fuck off, I don't ever want to do that. Like in Skyrim, there's playthroughs of that where I specifically never chose a faction. So it's like, I'm fucking off, like, goodbye, main storyline, fuck off. Like, so, but I still, like, do a whole bunch of shit. So, so that's why for me, when I'm planning a sandboxy game, like, I know it's a sandboxy game, but it's from a design standpoint. It's the designer knowing these are all the things that are planned in the world. I have no idea which things they're going to interact with or not.
Okay, so describe to me what a non-sandboxy game that is good in tabletop RPG would look like.
I mean, I played, like, one-shots are my best example.
But in one-shots, you can do whatever you want.
Yes, you're right. Not me running one-shots.
You may not finish the story
that
the GM has prepared.
Right.
But I would never, when I'm running games, in one-shots or in anything else. I mean, when I ran the GURPS game last week, by definition, that would be a sandbox game. Yeah, now the party had a mission. They're part of an organization. You're going to go do this.
Right.
So there's a main story. But how they do it, I don't know. What can I do?
Right.
Or if they just like, you know what? Screw these people. Screw this organization. We're going to conquer this planet ourselves because we have lasers and all they have are 6-shooters.
Right.
I would have run with it.
Yeah. But I would say for an example of a video game, like Mysts, like where it's like a puzzle solving game where you're solving a mystery or something like that. I can see a really great game with that where it's not necessarily totally sandboxy and totally open world.
Right.
You still want your players to feel like it's an open world and like they have all these decisions, but sometimes you're going to get to that lock and maybe it will have a specific reason for, you're going to be Gandalf getting there and like, oh, Melon, like you have to know what it is. And I don't think it's bad to sometimes have that. If it's fucking there all the time, that's fucking annoying as fuck.
Sure.
I don't think I could said fuck many more times in that sentence. But I think there's room for both. Like, as long as you're not completely railroading the players and, actually, that is the wrong key. You have to go back 8 rooms in the dungeon and go into the little chat. Like, right, that's annoying. But if it's actually a cool puzzle to solve.
But even quote-unquote sandbox computer RPGs have that shit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Except the only true sandbox computer game that I know of, which is Minecraft, which that isn't your opinion that it's boring as fuck.
Or I think like No Man's Sky, they mentioned that in the chat room. It's literally just exploration game.
Right.
Like you are literally just on a spaceship and you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Good.
No, I was looking because you were going to say something.
I was. Something I find frustrating in games is when I haven't the first fucking clue what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I have no idea how to
maybe there is no
this.
supposed to.
Mm-hmm. I like Kimmy's definition of sandbox.
Huh?
No, I like Kimmy's definition of sandbox because I actually didn't know that about computer games. That would make sense.
I don't know how sandbox is a helpful term in tabletop RPGs.
No, it's
overused.
What is crunch debate?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because everybody has a different. I had a different idea than Kimmy did, than you do, than Jib did.
I'm right.
I like yours.
I'm just kidding. That was that's why I was used it. But you're right. Like once these terms don't have a universal meaning, they are less helpful.
And none of them ever do.
No.
I mean, none of the terms that get coined in tabletop RPGs have a specific meaning. 9
years later, we're still arguing about definitions, and we have not learned.
But to the point of the writer, I have to see your name again, Joshua. I mean, the GM does have to, so I can't believe you would have said that either. But the GM has to do something because you are there to figure out.
Oh, I definitely didn't say the GM doesn't get to do anything.
No.
Yeah, well, because you have to, there have to be, as Rands was pointing out, there have to be consequences to actions.
Exactly.
And someone there to interpret what that means when the dice determine you fail or succeed or, whatever the mechanic of that particular system has you do.
Yeah.
If you decide, I'm not going to wait for the guy to fix my armor, I'm going to stab him in the chest.
Yeah.
Guess what? You just killed the only armorer here, so now your armor is really not going to get fixed ever.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of spending our time like creating new tabletop RPGs, we should create an RPG tabletop dictionary.
Yes, a glossary.
Like agreed upon, and then we can just.
You want the most unread book ever. That's what you want to make. Or at least the most ignored book ever.
That would be on brand with me, honestly. It'd be 100% something I'd spend my time doing.
I would do that.
Right.
That would be fantastic.
Gina would read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To sell it for $1 million, you only need to sell one copy.
One copy.
Yeah.
Gina, can you buy it for $1 million?
can't.
Oh, okay.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Dope.
All right.
All right.
Anything else?
No, but that's Whoever said that was a douche, Joshua.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone said
I
that.
don't think so. I don't think they meant it.
Unless-
that
well,
sounded like
There
it.
have been examples where we've joked about, I didn't do anything in that game. Like, I just sat there and let them yell at each other, and you're like, that. We have made jokes about that before,
sure.
but we're
Yeah.
not
Absolutely.
actually doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But I would love to see the excerpt where I said in a sandbox game the GM can't do anything. I would love to hear that quote.
My favorite thing is that the player in the second example is a way better player than the first example. Because the player in the second game doesn't say the same thing as the player in your game.
No.
Your player goes, Stu, I thought, and this player was like, I'm in a bit of a rush. I'm going to roleplay.
That's the variable in the experiment.
Yeah.
Right.
Good players and other players.
Yeah. See?
All right.
Maybe if
comes
it's
down to
a
player
sandbox
entitlement
depending
again.
on the players. Maybe if you have crappy players, you don't have a sandbox.
Maybe.
Right?
That's not how that works.
Well,
No.
I can honestly say I've had situations where I've offered the players options to do what, and they're like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Yeah.
Oh, this was my favorite tables ever.
It's like,
Yeah, Stu is looking
what are we supposed to
stricken
do?
right now.
I don't know.
Pick
I
something.
love that.
Well, the other
I
thing
want
with
to be
that
buried in sand when that happens.
is if you have multiple proactive players and then they all want to do different stuff, then that's
sure.
fun too.
Yeah.
Because then you get to just listen to an hour and a half of what should we do.
Or have an entire or several sessions where they're split.
Or they go shopping.
Oh, yeah.
I love shopping so much. It's my favorite thing. That's where I railroad.
We actually talked a little bit in Bloodblade and Tusk, didn't we?
Yeah, a little
not
is fine.
just a tiny
little
bit.
is fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a whole session.
Choice.
All
You
right.
don't want to spend whole episodes doing
Yeah.
Star Wars, shopping for.
I just pantomime shooting myself in the mouth
Yeah.
to those listening at home. All right.
All right. We did it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let's.
Yeah. Don't forget.
Oh, go ahead.
No. That's it.
Oh, you know what? happyjacks.org/rainbow if
Yes,
you would
sir.
like to donate. Boom.
Please.
Yeah, do
Right.
it.
That thing.
Tell
That was
your
the thing.
friends.
And now I will drop the song
Yes. And
like a hammer on my toe. What?
yes. Next Tuesday is Giving Tuesday or something?
Yes,
I've been-
Giving
Yeah,
Tuesday.
so pick our charity. Do happyjacks.org/rainbow on Giving Tuesday. Woohoo.
Or any good charity.
Any good charity,
Because
yes.
charities are awesome.
But do
Yes.
a given.
Yeah, do the giving. Pick something you care about.
Thank you for joining us for season 23, episode 6 of Happy Jacks RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
I'm Gina. She, her.
And I am not Stork.
Nope. That's Jim.
Jim.
And we will be back next week, Friday, 7 p.m.-ish Pacific time. happyjacks.org/live if you'd like to join us live in the chat room as we stream. Thank you very much, and we'll leave you with a song.
been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.